Hi everybody, welcome to today's Ocean Wonders video. Today we're learning about a really fascinating group of animals called crabs. Now what exactly is a crab? Well, a crab is an invertebrate. This is an animal that doesn't have a backbone. It's also belonging to a group called crustaceans. Crustaceans include animals like crabs, prawns, shrimp and lobster. All these animals have hard shells and also a number of other features in common. Crabs are also decapods. These are 10-footed animals. Crabs really do come in all shapes and sizes, but they generally share all of these key features. So they don't have a skeleton like we do, but instead they have something called an exoskeleton, and this is a hard shell that surrounds their body. This protective shell acts like a suit of armor and often contains spines or teeth. They have 10 legs, and 2 of these legs are modified to have claws or pincers on the end. These claws or pincers are used to catch prey, to chop it up, and to crush prey too. Crabs also have eyes that sit on top of stalks in the middle of their head. A crab's blood is blue, and this is due to the high amounts of copper in it. Crabs are also covered in many tiny hairs called setae, and these hairs can detect chemicals and vibrations in the water. Now don't be alarmed. Ecdysis is a very common phenomenon. You may have heard of animals like snakes shedding their skin. Well, crabs are very similar to this. As crabs grow, their exoskeleton doesn't grow with them, so they need to molt their shell. So what happens is the hard shell cracks, the crab crawls out of their old shell, and then they have a nice soft shell underneath. So this soft shell needs to harden over time. And while the soft shell is hardening up, crabs need to be very careful because they are at greater risk of being eaten. They don't have their extra hard armor around them. They're quite soft, and other animals that like to eat crabs are very aware that the crab is easier to eat with soft shell. Crabs are found in almost all marine environments around the world. They're found along our coastlines, they're found in the deep sea, they're found in polar waters, tropical waters, and temperate waters. Many crabs are found in fresh waters as well. So that includes water bodies like rivers or lakes, and some crabs live almost completely on land. For example, some crabs live most of their lives on land, but they only have to return to sea when they need to mate and to release their eggs. Crabs can live up trees, in burrows, buried in the sand, buried in mud, and they can live inside of other animals as well. So some crabs are parasites, and some other crabs just live inside the shells of, say, for example, mussels or oysters. Did you know that a group of crabs is called a cast? What do crabs eat? Now this is nearly like a trick question because there isn't a whole lot that they don't eat. They basically eat everything. Crabs are omnivores, meaning that they eat both plants and animals. They're also predators, so they can hunt down animals to feed on them, but then they're also scavengers, so they would eat a decaying plant or they'd eat a dead animal. So they didn't actively hunt it, but they would just eat it if they came across, say, a decomposing whale carcass. Crabs have also known to be gardeners. So there's a type of crab called yeti crab that has very hairy claws. And these crabs are believed to garden certain bacteria to grow in their hairy claws because these crabs don't have access to a lot of food. So what they do is they grow the bacteria and they actually feed off this bacteria that grows on their hairs. Who'd have thought that crabs would be good gardeners? Many people talk about how crabs can only walk sideways. However, this actually isn't true. Crabs can walk or run sideways, backwards, and forwards. Did you know that some crabs are actually great swimmers? If you look at a crab's back pair of legs, you can normally tell if it is a walker or a swimmer. So looking at the pictures here, you can see that one of the crabs has got sharp pointed back legs and the other crab has got an oar or paddle-like pair of back legs. Can you guess which one is the swimmer and which one is the walker? Yeah, so the blue crab, this one has oar-like back legs and these are used for swimming. So this crab can actually paddle with its back pair of legs, whereas crabs that have sharp pointed back legs, well, these legs are used for walking and they're used to stabilize the crab and to stop it from sinking into the substrate that it's walking across. Does anyone know how you can tell the difference between a male crab and a female crab? Well, I'm going to show you here now. So there's a body part on the underside of the crab called an apron, and the apron has a distinctive shape in males and females. So if you look at the pictures here, in the top picture, this is a male, and the apron is like a long pointed shape, kind of like a candle. However, in a female, the apron is much broader, it's wider, and it's sort of like, like a bell that you would ring. It's sort of like a bell shape. Now the female, when she's pregnant and she's carrying eggs, carries her bright orange eggs underneath her apron. And a female can carry up to 180,000 eggs at one time. There's a huge diversity of crabs around the world. There's over 5,000 different species, so 5,000 different types of crabs. In Ireland, there's around 60 to 70 different species that you can find. And crabs really do come in all shapes and sizes and colours. So now we're going to take a look at a few examples of different crab species. The first one that I'd have to mention is the green shore crab. This is definitely the most common crab that you'd find around Irish coastlines. If you've ever been rock pooling or crabbing, it's probably this crab that you've met. It's normally greenish in colour, but it can be orange or even have a bit of red on it as well. Now this alien-like creature is called the Japanese spider crab, and this is the largest crab in the whole world. Now don't worry, you won't come across it when you're swimming in the sea in the summer. It's only found in waters around Japan. So it can grow to be about 3.7 meters across. So from one tip of a leg to the other tip of a leg. That's around the size of a small car. It's huge. The lifespan of a small crab, like say for example the green shore crab, would only be a couple of years, but larger species like the Japanese spider crab can live as long as 100 years. Now this is one of the coolest species of crab. This crab is called the boxer crab, but it's also known as the pom-pom crab. And I can see why it gets the name pom-pom crab, because it kind of looks like it's a cheerleader with pom-poms in its hand. So the boxer crab, it's famous because of its relationship with another type of species. It has a symbiotic relationship with sea anemones. So it carries a sea anemone in each of its claws, and there's a benefit to both the sea anemone and the crab. So the crab is able to defend itself because it uses the stinging cells of the anemones to sting any animal that tries to attack it. And the anemone also gets a benefit because it's exposed to more food particles by moving around the water. Loads of different animals eat crabs. You may have seen seagulls and herons and other seabirds feasting on crabs when you're by the coast. Other animals that eat crabs include fish, turtles, snakes, sea otters, foxes, shrimp, and even humans. Have you ever tasted crab before? So lots of people like to eat crab claws. Despite adult crabs having a very solid shell, their exoskeleton, they actually make a delicious meal for many animals. Like many ocean animals, climate change can impact crabs. Things like warming of our oceans and acidification can have negative effects on the shell of crabs. Overfishing is one of the most significant drivers of declines in numbers of ocean animals. Catching fish isn't inherently bad for the ocean. It's just when fish or crabs are caught at a rate that their natural stocks can't replenish, then it's bad, and that's what we call overfishing. Parasites are another threat to crabs, and there's some really strange examples of parasites infecting crabs and kind of taking over their body, almost like they're operating the crab like a robot. So you may already know by now, but crabs are really important creatures. First of all, they're decomposers. Decomposers play a really important role in the ecosystem. So they're able to harvest decomposing plant and animal matter, and by feeding on this matter, they sort of clean up the seabed. They also create healthy habitats for other animals and plants to live in. So I mentioned earlier that crabs can actually dig into burrows. So by moving through the soil, the sand, or the mud, crabs can actually add oxygen into this environment. Crabs are also featured in Greek mythology. So the legend has it that Hera, who was the wife of Zeus and the queen of all the gods, sent a crab, a giant crab, to harass Hercules in his battle with the many-headed monster Hydra. Hercules crushed the crab beneath his heel, and as a reward for its bravery, Hera placed the crab in the heavens as a constellation. So that's why one of the star signs is known as Cancer, the crab. The crab is also a worshipped creature around the world, and it plays a very important part in many cultures. Say, for example, in Ireland, the shamrock is an important part of our culture, while in other parts of the world, it's actually the crab. Crabs are also used in medication. Did you know that there's a substance within the exoskeleton that's called chitin, and this can be used in tablet form to give to people to help reduce fat and cholesterol in their body, and also it helps blood to clot when applied to wounds. And crabs are also a very important food source. So we might only eat them, say, as a delicacy in Ireland, but in other parts of the world, they make up a significant portion of the protein of people's diets. So we've come to the end of our lesson, and I hope you all enjoyed learning about crabs. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.